All right, so to get started, like I said, I want to go over just kind of checking with stuff. But the main goal is, at least for this first part, is I want to go over really just reviewing where we are. Ideally, you have already gotten your sketch revolved for both the base, and then if you made a sketch revolve for the lid, or if it's just a cylinder that you hollowed out, whatever. Both of these, we ended up using the shell tool to hollow out, but don't forget that in this case, let me just hide the lid. One of the things that did pop up to become an issue is that if your threads are too large, they will cut too far into this wall, and it makes a lot more sense to, instead of including the neck on your bottle container as part of your profile outline, make these two separate. That way you can hollow them out separately if you need to, because remember, the shell tool operates as an offset tool, yes, all around, but it will only operate and open to the outside on one surface, not if you're trying to cut straight through. So if you're just trying to cut straight through, you might have to use like the extrude and cut all the way through tool. And then afterwards, you can use the combine tool to then join what will be the body of the vessel and the threaded neck. So those are those are just a couple different ways of approaching that. All right, so what I want to do is want to show you how to add some textures and such to this. Now, we went over playing with making these multiples using the circle pattern tool, and that is just using whatever you've designed. Definitely build that sketch on an offset plane, and I will just refer back to that. Meaning that, let me try to move the slider back. Before your offset construction plane, this first tool on top or on the drop down first tool available, it simply takes one of the existing sketch planes, one of the existing origin planes, either the XZ, the XY, YZ, or XZ. We made this sketch on the XZ plane, so might as well extend it off of that. Let me unhide the origin, I'll show you what I mean. This is your XZ plane, X across, Z straight up and down. And it just creates a plane floating out in space wherever you want it to be. And in this case, you want it to be out floating in front of your model, the body, so that you can use the emboss tool outside of that. If you try to make your sketch inside, it can cause some errors or just some really weird results. If you have it floating out front, no big deal, or it tends to not be a big deal. But if you've already done your sketch and you're having trouble, like, oh no, now what do I have to do? Like, move my sketch? Do I have to copy and paste it onto something else? No, you can actually create a construction plane. And if then your sketch is floating on, or your sketch is working on the inside, what you can do, right click on the sketch, and you can go to redefine sketch plane. And this isn't going to change anything for me, but let me unhide the construction plane. And if it was originally on on the origin planes, you can now just select your new construction plane, and it will snap and change that sketch orientation to the new construction plane. The benefit of that, rather than taking that sketch and like using a move tool and dragging it out away, is that you can always redefine a sketch plane much more easily, much faster, and with better reference. If you use the move tool, you've got to go through and move it by hand each time all around. And with this, if you then wanted to add more sketches or add to that sketch on that construction plane, all you got to do is reference that construction plane. Again, that's one of those little tweaks that might not show up immediately, but it is absolutely helpful for working with what we're doing. Sorry, I just realized I could maximize the screen a little bit for everybody in here. All right, cool. There we go. All right. So a couple things. Already did that. See if I can cause any errors. Nope, we're all set. Let me hide that sketch. Get away. Cool. So I've used that to make those textures. Okay. So a couple things I want to do is make like a texture on the lid, because if I'm trying to unscrew a lid, it's locked on tight, anything like that. Best thing, have some kind of texture there, just so you have some grippy strength or something to grip to. There we go. Now I want to show you two different versions because somebody was asking about the knurling, so I'm going to do duplicate. So let me hide the vessel because I just want to mess with the lid. And I'm going to copy paste. If it'll let me. Oh, sorry, I'm on Mac, so it's Command. All right, so that's just making a duplicate. It was just Command C, Command V. If you're on PC, copy paste, Control C, Control V. All set. All I'm doing there, just making a duplicate. There's no change when I hide one or the other, but I did that so that way I can show you two different versions. Okay, first what I want to do is showing you like how I did this lid, kind of like a pill bottle approach. So with that, what I would do is go to Sketch, create Sketch, and I can sketch on a surface. I don't necessarily have to have a plane to work from. With Fusion and many other ones, but specifically with Fusion, you can select a flat surface. If you're trying to sketch on a curved surface, you have to use what we just did, construction plane out in front, and use emboss or something because you want it to curve around. Or you can extrude if you want it straight out. But stick with what we got going here. All right, sketch on that plane, great. And again, I just have that section analysis on, so that's just showing you half of it. In this case, I'm just going to draw a circle, center point circle, right on the edge. And I don't know, let's see, what does one look like? Let's make it extra grippy. Let's do a little more.
Professor, do you mind sharing your screen?
Oh, I am sorry. I thought I was sharing my
No
screen.
worries.
Thank you very much, Owen. So sorry, and that means half of this recording was useless. Awesome. Why is Fusion giving me these? One moment, please. Oh, good Lord.
Would we be able to watch this recording later?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Unless I mess it up like I just did. Oh, there it is. Okay, well, great. I did not realize that I was not sharing my screen, so I apologize. Bear with me on this. So what I was doing was we were looking at this vessel in order to show you how to create some textures and such. I hid the vessel and I just made a copy of the existing lid just because I want to be able to make two different versions of this. So I'm adding textures to these. Let me get back to my sketch, which is from the top on one of the lids. All right. So I have this sketch. I just drew a circle on the very edge. Sure, 2 millimeters, that works fine. That's it. Finished sketch. Done. Now I'm going to use the extrude tool. And in this case, let's do a positive extrude, meaning I'm just going to use from the top. Now I can drag downward. Now I only selected half of the circle because it automatically creates two different versions or two different sides of that. If you want to use both, it doesn't matter. If I use both, it's going to try to automatically do a cut. So that's all. And if you do that, if you don't want it to cut, just switch back to join. If you do want it to cut and make an indent instead of a positive section, do that, and it's going to cut in. But because of the threads there, look what's actually happening. It's cutting too far into the wall and actually cutting into my threads internally. So be aware of that. And if it does that, I don't know, you could always just shrink the size of your circle here. So instead, I'm going to join. There we are. Now, you don't have to go all the way down if you want. You could make a partial, whatever, but I want it to go all the way down. Now, I also don't want to have to fiddle with measuring or hoping I get it exactly right. Easiest way to have something snap, like an extrude, snap between two different parallel faces. Start plane? Great. Direction, it's going one direction. Extent type, rather than distance, which what we've been doing the whole time, is either dragging something or typing in numerically. I'm going to switch to object. And what that's going to do is that if I orbit down and then just select the bottom lip of my lid, it automatically snaps all the way absolutely down. Now, the benefit of doing something like this rather than doing it manually is if I went back and changed the height of this lid, it will automatically continue to snap all the way to the top and all the way to the bottom. That's one of the benefits of working with some of the extent types or constraints, things like that. This all rolls into the concept of parametric modeling. as in you go back in your history time, or in your history time, you go back in your project history and make an alteration. When you snap back to current, it will recalculate everything and make those adjustments for you. All right, great. I made that little bit. I'm going to do the same, use a circle pattern tool. Again, features, not faces. In this case, I want that. Now it's selecting the top as well. That's okay, because it's selecting also for the top and bottom of this extruded cylinder. Now it is showing a little bit of a tweak inside there, and that's only because, it's showing this little positive thing. Now, actually, one second. I just realized what it's going to do there. Look closely, because that cut was going to interfere. The extrude is also going to interfere. So what I need to do is, I'm glad I just caught that. Let me go back to the extrude, edit feature. Remember how for demonstration, I selected both faces because this outline creates a bisection. I'm going to unselect that middle part and only the half that's protruding outward from the circle. Great. Now, oops, it's not at all going to interfere with the inside. So that certainly helps. Glad I caught that. All right, let's go back to the circle pattern. Nope, not thread. Circle pattern. There we go. Features, just the little doodad there. Great. Select my axis, which in this case, this construction line is one and the same as the z-axis. And there we go. So we're doing the exact same thing. Let's add a bunch of these. I don't know. Instead of 3, let's add 30. Cool, that works. Okay. I don't know why that little pop-up is not going away. Great. Always helpful. And there you go. That's just a simple way to make a texture. Now, of course, you can always add a something like a fillet tool or anything like that to round this out. If I try to do fillet now, it's probably going to take a little while to calculate. Let's see if I can just grab just the surface. It's trying to grab all the things in between, which always gets frustrating. There we go. Let's try 1, see if that's too much. Yep. Fillet of 1 is too much for this whole thing. So if you're wanting to add like a slight curve or anything like that, what I have found the easiest thing on your extrude, let me hop back here. Drag the history slider before that. I'm going to edit that feature, and instead of join, I'm just going to have new body. This is going to cause some weird stuffs. But what I'm going to do, since that's now floating, I'm going to add a chamfer to the top, sure, and bottom. I don't know, like 1. Cool. Now, of course, that's going to cause some problems there. What you might actually do better is do this later. But if you run into this and you're still trying to make this fit the whole size, this is where you can just shrink that down a little bit instead of using the to extent. Oh, but it looks like my chamfer is going to cut into the walls there too. So you know what? I'm going to ignore the chamfer this time. We're just not going to do that. Just delete that feature. I'm going to go ahead and just undo what I did. Now that I see that that's going to interfere with things, let's just simplify it. Do exactly what I did the first time. Join body, textures. There we go. All right. Neat. You got that. That'll work. Okay. I'm going to save that. Just ridge lid. Great. So now I want to show you with the other copy I made. People were asking me about knurling. How do you do knurling? Now, again, knurling is that crosshatch pattern around the surface. You've seen it on everything from flashlights to pill bottles, keychains, everything. You probably just weren't aware of what the tool is called. Now, this is one that is not automatic. There's not a prefab tool for this. But how we can get a knurl tool is how we've done these other ones. We're using a simple shape, extrude, or cut into the surface here, and then use the pattern tool to make duplicates. So I'm going to do something similar with this, only this is generated and it's on a curve. So I'm going to do this, I'm going to use the coil tool. Now this just creates, like it says, a coil. If you're making springs, this is also how you can create flat spirals. It's a really convenient tool. What it's going to ask after it finally shows up is your start point. I'm going to use the top of that cylinder as my start point, and smack in the middle. I'm going to drag it outward, sure, the width of the circle, and then it starts to generate. Okay, holy mackerel, way more than I want. So a couple of things about this. For one, I definitely want it to go downward. Now, it's way too big in all elements. Things like the actual size itself, section size. I want to shrink that way down. Instead of 8 millimeters, let's do like 1. Made it way thinner. I also don't want a full revolution, meaning how many times it circles around a thing. Actually, I only want like 1, maybe even half. Let's try half. So that would be 0.5. All right, now you see it extends way further than I want. That's okay. I want to drag it to where it just extends past. All right, cool. It doesn't have to match up exactly. That's okay. But the one other thing I really need to do is this is a tool that can create, when it says sections, you can create different profiles. So circle, square, and what we want is the triangle. Now you can do it pointing inward or outward. That's that way you can create internal or externals as well. So internal means it's pointing inward. Now if I zoom in here, you can see that makes a triangular cut into the face. Mm-hmm. Now, if you want, you can shrink it to where it just fits just onto the surface. Doesn't really matter. I prefer to have it extend past. That just helps things. Double check the top as well. Sorry, my computer's slowing down a little bit now. Ugh. Come on. There we go. Make sure it's extending out past. Of course, we can always fix that later with a chamfer or something. So that's what we're going to do with that. All right. Now, if you do run into what I'm running into is that cut does the internal threads keep getting selected. See how that cut isn't going all the way to the front or all the way to the top? That's what kind of gets a little screwy. So what we could do with that, let's hit OK. You see how it doesn't cut all the way through? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the history slider just before my coil. This is where I'm going to put that chamfer on, just the corner. Let's say, sure, like 0.5, something like that. Okay. And now when I go reapply the cut, see it cuts all the way through. And plus I have a nice little chamfer there. Looks a lot better. Okay. Now the trick to this is if I make a copy, if I use the circle pattern tool to this just one thing, I'm going to only get a spiral, which looks neat. It does. But I want it to go both directions. So before I make that cut, it's actually easier. I'm going to go back to edit feature, and instead of cut, I'm going to do new body. So now you see how that's floating out and just floating as a separate thing. I'm going to use that as a cutting tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the mirror tool to make a copy going the opposite direction. So select mirror, object type is bodies. So that body, my mirror plane. Now you might have to zoom out for this, but since we're all still working right smack in the middle of the project, I can use my origin plane here. And that's the XZ, just like we've been doing. And now that goes in opposite directions. Now the problem is it wants to join automatically. Don't do that. Keep it as a new body. All right, cool. There we go. Now I made that cut going in opposite directions. Now let's do the combined cut. So target body, what I want to affect is the lid. Tool body is both of those parts of my coil. Now I got to make sure to, on the operation, go to cut. Now it's going both directions. Excellent. That's what I need to have happen. Okay. Now I probably should have made sure that that goes further up, but we'll deal with that. That's okay. So now with all that, and since I'm going to make a bunch of duplicates and I'm already bogging down, I'm going to save and knurling start just to give myself a reference, because if I crash, I don't want to lose this. All right. Circle pattern, features, and I want to create duplicates of, if you have trouble, sometimes it gets a little awkward selecting. No. It selected everything but the feature I wanted. There we go. Got both of them. Good. All right. Now we're going to do the exact same thing we've done so far. Select axis, Z-axis. Oh, that's a lot. Let's dial that back a hair. All right, 20. Hopefully my computer won't freeze. Hit OK. Error. What happened? Or is it thinking? What's going on, buddy? It's I did the thing, but it's not showing up.
15.
No, it just did. I didn't get an error or anything else. Just didn't show up. What is going on? All right, yeah, let's see if I don't know. There's no reason why it shouldn't be doing that, but axis selected, yeah. Features, type, yeah. Okay, well, that's a new one. I have no idea why it's not showing up. I'm not getting error for anything. It's not giving me problems. There's no reason why it should not be working.
Is it hidden? Some part hidden?
No body's hidden. That's all there. Should already be cut in. Let me try one more thing. Sometimes deleting and reapplying, maybe that'll do it. Like I said, computer's starting to bog down with things open, so let's try. One thing I've also tried in the past, I told you to use features. Let's try faces just to see what happens. Problem is doing that, you got to make sure to select all the different faces. Gets a little tedious, but it's not too bad. All right, let's try that. So again, I have all I have everything I need. Select my axis around the Z-axis. Still showing. Let's dial it back a little bit. Hit OK. Maybe. Hey, there we go. All right, so 15 kind of gets you an open knurl pattern. Keep going and you can make a tighter knurling pattern, but there you go. So that time it worked. I don't know why the standard face selection for circle pattern wasn't working, but that's an excellent way to show you excellent way to add knurling to your container. All right, so gonna save there. Knurling success. Okay, cool. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you. Just different ways you can add textures and such. Wanted to be able to, what just happened there? I don't know why. What just happened? Something just kicked me out.
What a wizard.
The heck? Why? No. No. Sorry, let me pause the video for a moment. Okay, don't know why another program jumped in on that. So the last part for this project is going to be adding an appearance or adding material appearances. Now, this does not actually change the physical materiality whatsoever in this case. All we're doing, and this is going to be a standard for pretty much all projects going forward, I want to see appearances placed on these. And all that is you press A for like Apple on the keyboard. Hey, what do you know? And this brings up your appearance tool. This allows you to make whatever you're working on look like whatever you feel like, or at least whatever they have in the library. You want to make your vessel a concrete vessel, and maybe it hides a demon core, cool. Or maybe it's just painted like a pretty color, also good. I recommend you play around with these. There's a whole bunch in here. Note that plastic is not like, oh yeah, it's like pink plastic. No, it's like industrial plastics and such, because this is geared toward actual manufacturing and such and that sort. But there are some different types of plastics in here, textured, translucent, and transparent. You're going to get actual like the colored plastic, so there is that. What you might notice in all of these, there's a little arrow key next to them. Fusion doesn't automatically download the entire library when you install it. It's just a way to help keep the try to keep the install slightly more minimized. So you do have to go through and you do have to go through and download as you need. So if you want translucent yellow plastic, great. You got to actually hit the download little symbol for it. Once you do, it'll stay downloaded on this computer instance. So if you go home and use your other computer or something like that, you're going to have to download it again on that computer. In order to apply it, just click, drag, plop. There you go. So sometimes it does get a little squirrely trying to select things if they're all too tight together. So obviously play with the toggle the visibility and such. So I don't know. Sure, it's shiny yellow plastic with, ooh, well, knurled brass. Cool. I wonder what knurled brass on knurling will do. That might just cause like a. All right, so we're going to talk about texture maps here in a bit. So it looks like the knurled brass, because it's actually like a pattern, kind of like wood pattern, wood grain would be. If you already have a heavy texture on your design, I would just go with like a standard material. If you want to change, all you got to do, click and drag over, same thing. It will overwrite. In the top, it'll show you all the materials you're currently using. There you go. Play around with it. The paint, the metals are really nice. The paint section has glossy, has metal flake, metallic, powder coat. There's all kinds of really nice ones. So play around with them. Main thing is to finish out for this, for the now, you are applying appearances. Now, for all these textures or all these surface details and such, and other little details like that, you can actually switch and apply appearances just to those. On the top of the toolbox where it says bodies components, switch it to faces. And now let's see, I don't know, glossy green, because why not? Now this does get tricky in that, so when I click and drag, it only selects just that face. So it gets a little tedious. If you're trying to select multiples, the old control select, nope, shift select, but be careful that you don't accidentally select the whole thing. You see how there's this blue outline around my whole project now? Not what I want. If I hit escape, it gets out of the whole tool, which is not what I want either. But in order to select, you just have to be very careful when you're selecting multiple faces. Once you get them selected, you can click and drag your color, and it'll snap it to all of those. So if you want to play with that, more power to you. Just know that, yeah, it's easier to select those if they're different bodies, but when you go to join them together, it's going to override the different colors and make it all one single color. So if you want to make them different colors, different appearances, that sort, you just have to be very cautious with selecting the individual faces and use the face selection tool on the toolbox. So there you go. Build it out, add texture to the surface, make some color, add some colors, that sort. Hit save. Appearances. Spelled possibly correctly. Alrighty.